it's fun, and that's what this hobby's about.
Oh gosh, yeah.
And Luka will see you in the next video.
Absolutely. Probably about 10 years ago, I bought a. Sorry, everyone.
In fact, I loaned one of these to Rick Salvino when he was working on his Formula One car, and I said, "Yeah, can I get that back?" No, you're not getting it back.
Yeah, it's a lot of hard work, isn't it?
It is. I had no idea. I wish you'd have told me.
I tried. You wouldn't listen to me. I was grabbing it.
Yeah, I watched your build on that Mustang to see what kind of pitfalls were going to come in. So.
Didn't really have any.
No, that's what I thought. I'm getting it.
It's like a Ferrari. Is that what's that there? A Ferrari there? Or?
Greg, have you got a good you have got an awesome eye. 330.
Oh, it looks good. It's my dog, white.
I could come in here and probably, paint a body and go, oh shit, I got fish eyes in this thing. Yeah, you know what? I'll carry it out to the old purple pond, drop it off into it, and I'll go and pull another kit, and I'll go, well, let's try this.
Exactly. What is that, like the fishing thing? Your worst day model building is better than your best day at work, right? That's it.
It's so true.
That was something that when I started watching your videos, I really liked your personality. I mean, you don't know nothing about Ed Roth, so you really, at this point, it's time to, back off, I think. But
well, I'm ignorant. I'm just so ignorant.
That's right, you're ignorant. Then you go Hollywood.
It's a good forum to do that, and to talk models, any type of models. I just like talking styrene, period.
Yeah, we like it. We're addicted. Hey, well, good morning, my fellow car modelers. Probably not morning while you're watching this because, what are the chances? Or if it is morning, good morning, or good afternoon, or good evening. Anyways, I have I guess this would be kind of a little, what would I call this? Kind of a correction video, an update video, and a little, interesting, never realized that video. Just a helpful video, how about that? First thing I want to get down to is I want to talk about my Holy Grail video, and I talked about those wonderful, just legendary, mythological now model kits from Aurora that were those 16 scale funny car packs, or you bought the engine, you bought the body, you bought everything separate, the guys, even a whole shop. What a great, if you haven't watched that video, go check that video out. I want to do more about those. I would love to get a chance to really take a close look at those if I can one of these days. I'd love to own them one day, but I just don't have the extra $5,000 or $3,500 it would take to nail a good set of those. But I definitely would. They are legendary and a big part of our hobby history. If you're into our hobby history, you're still watching. If you are, one of the main guys that was involved in that with Aurora back in the day was Jim Keeler, legendary Jim Keeler. Been talking to him through Messenger, and I'm going to have him on the Unpodcast probably, within the next month or so. I'm really excited about that. He's one of my model car heroes. Reading about him for years. He was a big part of the hobby, did amazing things. I've mentioned him a few times on this channel. He did the great Dodge Fever builds that then recreated in the 80s, and there was an article written about him. I covered that in one of my Scale Auto enthusiast retrospectives. Anyways, speaking with him, he corrected me on something. Those actually were not destroyed in that legendary or historical train wreck when Monogram bought out Aurora. They were shipping all the molds. There was a big train wreck. Again, go watch this video from Max's Models. Max's Models channel is so cool, has the greatest model kit manufacturer documentaries ever. What Jim said is actually when Monogram, it's the old Monogram, so let's not do any hating on Revell Monogram of today. It's like 17 companies ago, but back in the 70s, Monogram, when they were just by themselves, bought it up. They did not want to reproduce those. They found it more valuable to take those molds, because they did get them. They never were destroyed in that train wreck. Take those molds, so they found that there was enough material, and this tells you how big molds are, especially for 16 scale stuff. Melt it down to get, for scrap, about $350,000 worth of scrap metal there. $350,000. This is late 70s, is mid to late 70s, so you can imagine how much money that is. Corporate greed took over what would be cool. Those, we would still have those kits today, but they probably wouldn't. It wouldn't be that big of a deal, but they probably would still. I bet you they'd still sell today. It is really, a bummer where a corporation, they really weren't about the product that they produced. They were about the money they get for that product. The corporate greed was even happening back then. It probably is actually at that time was probably a good business decision, because you got to figure in the mid 70s, the whole thing about the hobby was dying. I'm telling you, the hobby was dying in the mid 70s. You guys have no idea. I don't even really have an idea. I'm going by what I've always heard. The hobby has been rocketing since the mid 70s, because there was this guy, I don't know, named Gary Schmidt. I keep saying, he started this little magazine called Scale Auto Enthusiast. I'm going to be honest, I really do believe that we have the hobby today because of Gary doing that magazine. That is what rejuvenated it. But yeah, so I just wanted to bring that out to you. That was kind of an interesting little thing that Mr. Keeler told me, and we'll talk more about that, so be sure to be on the lookout for that on podcast. You're going to hear about it on this channel, on Luka Cee Model Car Hobby Headquarters channel. I'll plaster it all over the Facebooks, all those, but you'll know about it. Watch out for it. And it would really help then if you're not subscribed to this channel, subscribe to this channel. I don't do this very much. Subscribe to this channel and hit the notification button, and you will find out when my podcasts come out. I really highly recommend those on the podcast. I put the little at the beginning. That's why I put the little commercial for them up there. Just, you guys start watching these. Bringing on, you wouldn't believe the roster of guests I have coming on starting in January. I can't believe it. I've been contacting these people, and a lot of people from the old Scale Auto are coming on. It is so cool. These dudes, to me, are probably some of the most important figures in our hobby. The guys that I'm going to be interviewing, you got to watch it. I'm telling you, if it wasn't for these people that I'm going to be doing some shows on, weren't around, didn't get involved the way they didn't write for Scale Auto Enthusiasts, we would not have the hobby we have today. We wouldn't have it. Absolutely would not have it. And one of them, he has a regular YouTube channel. That's Doug White. I had him on the podcast. What a great interview that was. And you got to go check out his channel, the Model Car Muse, because that is what can I say? If you want to learn about the hobby you're into, if you have an interest in where this hobby came from, all the kits that came out and have left, and the direction things were going, there's still so many of these wonderful people that are involved that were in the hobby back then to keep telling the story so that we keep the history of this hobby going. That is probably the main purpose of this channel, is to keep everyone knowledge-educated on the history of this wonderful hobby. Why would you not want to know it? It is important. Now, I got that out of the way. Let's just go ahead and move on to the next subject I want to cover. I got something really interesting for you. So I guess you could say this is a two-parter, but it's all about giving you guys information and a little bit of history. So I have here, you remember, I did the covering of the latest Salvino's JR Models kit that just came out. Well, they're coming out with. This is coming out, going to be hitting the shelves here within a couple of weeks. Darrell Waltrip's Mountain Dew from 81 Mountain Dew Buick. But what's so cool about it is one of the very first kits Monogram put out of that wonderful series of NASCAR race cars is the 82 version. So this kit came out probably around early 83. It was one of the first one. This one, the Uno, and they put out two Thunderbirds. That's right. The ad. I'm going to show you something there. There is a little part that at first I thought they had omitted this part because it actually started to become obsolete. But there's something really cool only in the GM cars. They didn't put it in the Fords. Monogram modeled something really cool, really interesting. I'm going to show you this clip that was kind of a documentary on where this technology came from, which was really cool for us because we got really excellent remote controlled moving around in-car camera shots because of this. And they modeled that system in these Monogram kits back in the day, and you might not really notice them. Let's take a look real quick.
Up towards the cutting. Brooks in front. Grice pulls out the pass. Comes up on the outside of him. Brock can see him. Grice is going through into the cutting. He's going hard and deep. A second gear corner this.
Racecam was a Bathurst-born innovation that changed the way we watch motorsport and put the armchair fan in the driver's seat.
We'll take him on the outside if he doesn't crush me. I got him. There are those two big monsters. Here I come. Look out, you big ugly thing. Get out of the road, you big ugly thing. Come on, move!
This new technology had a four-wheel inspiration. 7 Network pioneer Jeff Healy came up with the idea after using a camcorder in the family car.
One day it was in the back of the car and my son said, let's film the drive to school. And he sat on, he just reached the dashboard. We held over the front, they went through the front windscreen. And later on, a few weeks later, we were looking at the tape. We thought, goodness sake, that's not too bad. Doesn't it look fast because of the wide-angle lens? It's just driving to school. And suddenly we thought, my goodness, that would be an interesting idea for Bathurst. It was just not a camera, as I say, bolted to a car. It was a microwave link, helicopter, telemetry, joystick controls, and also training cameramen to operate the camera from, remote position. It was quite new technology.
The first appearance of Racecam was at Mount Panorama in 1979, and Peter Williamson entertained.
There's that rotten Volvo, holding everybody up.
It turned out so successfully that after a while people were crawling over us to get cameras in their cars.
Ford legend Dick Johnson provided some more memorable moments.
I was actually leading the race and I'm going down the straight and I get to the fastest part of the racetrack and while Mike's talking to me I'm going through the chase and at the rear wing, unbeknownst to me, the rear wing had broken in half and Mike absolutely nearly died because he thought he'd caused me to sort of fire off the road, but it was pretty exciting. I think it's just fantastic because it's opened not only V8 supercars or touring cars here in Australia, but the whole world to a different perspective of what it's like from a driver's point of view.
4, 3, 2, on the brakes.
So let's open up this one again before I put it back up on the shelf. I'm getting ready to. It's the perfect one to show you because this is one of the first releases of this kit. And we're going to be looking at the instructions, but if you dig down in here, let's get all this out of the way. We're going to need that body minute. But you want to find this tree right here, which has, your engines and halves and headers, all that stuff. But it has the CBS camera right there. They tried it out at the Daytona 500. There is a mystery piece that you will find in any of the GM cars that were based off of this design, this Laughlin front steer chassis that you still see in kits that are putting out. And there's this mystery part right here. And you usually didn't see it in the instructions, number 55. Looks kind of like a big oil filter. What that is, if you look here on one of the early issues, you will find there's your camera, remote controlled camera. Then you go over to right here. You might never even notice it. It actually was a long time before I ever noticed it because I just looked at this panel when I did use the instructions after building 158,000 of these NASCAR kits. I never looked at the instructions probably in 30 years, but you see right there, 55. It just gets glued onto the trunk lid, which there really isn't a specific place for it. But what it is it gets placed on the trunk lid, and you'll see it on many of the cars in the early 80s. It was placed usually closer to the back window and probably more on this side, but I've seen them at different places. This was the transceiver antenna, and it would shoot the beams from the camera up to a helicopter, and the helicopter would bring it down into their control center. They would have a mobile control center where they would bring it onto the TV. Monogram put that on there, and never really made a big deal. I've never seen anyone do it. If anybody has, let us know down in the comments. And if you have a picture, go over to the Luka Cee Model Car Hobby Headquarters Facebook group and post a picture of your NASCAR race car, be it probably the GM race cars, early 80s, and see if you did that. Because this kind of got used for just a little while, and then they went to something a little different towards the mid to late 80s, where it was, when the cars had more of a more laid back window. They just put them inside the car so they wouldn't be out there to mess up the air. But yeah, I just thought that was a neat little thing that has been with us for years, and it kind of fell off of the instruction sheets, and everybody kind of forgot. Part 55. You're watching the Luka Cee channel on YouTube. So there you go. Something interesting. I bet you always wondered what that little part was. No, it wasn't a gigantic oil filter. And I went ahead and I pulled out some more after I filmed that. I pulled out a couple of more older, but later Monogram instructions for. Yeah, this is for the Monte Carlo. You see that? That's for the still the notchback Monte Carlo. And then I grabbed a later one that came out in the late 80s, early 90s. It was the Goodwrench Monte Carlo that they still had the camera. This is the Budweiser notchback. So this would be the 84 car. Still had the camera. And for the Monte Carlos, they had a drawing of the glass placement. And of course, you see little number 55 right there. You look at this. This is from late 80s, early 90s release of the Goodwrench Monte Carlo. No camera. No antenna placement, because by this time they weren't. Everything had gotten so much smaller. They were using totally different stuff. Yet those two parts are still to this day in those kits. You find them even in the Salvino's JR models. They're not on their instructions, but they're there. If you're doing an early 80s NASCAR, you want to have the in-car camera thing. There you go. I'm glad I can help. I'm really glad I can help. That's my little thing for the day. I hope you all learned something and enjoyed. I want to hear in the comments if there's any questions you have that you'd like me to do a video on about anything from the past. You don't understand what's going on in a kit from the past, why or when or how. Like a kit like these NASCAR kits that have been produced for 40 years and they can keep re-upping them because it's an interesting subject. Why is this here? Because they don't talk about it anymore. I could probably help you out with that. Anyways, thank you very much. Have a wonderful rest of your holidays. I know we're doing some cool stuff. I know you're probably doing some cool stuff. And go on down in the description below. I've got links to my Teespring store. Got great shirts and mugs. I've got links to everybody that need to have links to go to. Be on the lookout for the Podcast. If you haven't watched any of these Podcasts, go back and watch them. They're really fun. They're really interesting. We talk a lot about all kinds of stuff, but mostly model cars. We do go off the rails. Some people are my friends that I talk to all the time. Some are people I just met and have become friends with. There's a lot of insiders in the hobby on these shows, and you get to find out some really cool stuff about the hobby. It is an outstanding show. I do actually make it in podcast form, an audio version that I do put temporarily on my channel that is on Spotify and a couple others. You saw it in the ad in the front. Go back and watch the ad. So if you just want to listen on your phone as a podcast, they don't stay long because I don't pay for it, so they only let me keep it up for an X amount of time, so I'll only have a couple at a time. So I would usually have the latest 2 or 3 that I've done. Maybe if it gets big, I'll start making it an actual full-on podcast that's on Spotify and all the other popular streaming services. That being said, I'm out of here. I got some mold making to do today, so I'm going to get some work done. Might even get some model building done. Who knows? All right, guys. Thanks a bunch for watching. We'll see you later. And I'm going to go with this. This is me, Luka Cee. Keep gluing those fingers together and keep cutting that styrene. And we will see you in the next video. Here are the producers. Now, I got that out of the way. Let's talk about the, hold on a second. We need to plug in because this thing's going to shut off like a bad mamma jamma that it is. Let's hopefully I get it plugged in. Now that we got that out of the way, what was I saying? Okay. Let's move on to, I'll just use the original one I did because I think it was better. Let's just go ahead and move on. So I have here, you remember I did the covering. Neat. Of the latest Salvino. Try that one again. I'm going to have bloopers.